Used clothing. There's a lot of it. Enough to create an industry and disrupt the economies of some developing nations. Hey there, want to feel bad about something that was probably making you feel pretty good until just now? Hello, my thrifty thinkers. My name is Heather, and welcome once again to the Myth Rose channel. In this video, we will be talking about the used clothing industry and where your donated clothes actually go. So, where do they go? There's actually something called a clothing deficit myth. You may think that when you take your clothes to a store or a donation center that they go to local people in need, or just people in need in general. Of course, when you take it to a thrift store, some of it may end up being sold in that thrift store, but probably not as much as you think. Some estimates are as little as a third. When you take your clothing to a thrift store or a donation center, it will probably go to one of three places. One, as I said, it has a chance of going to the store, although that's possibly a 30% chance. Two, it might just go to the garbage. Lots of people donate crap. Or three, it's likely that it will get sorted into bales and sold overseas. A third of all that clothing really adds up. At one point, Canada was sending $22 million worth of used clothes per year just to Kenya. And at one point, used garments accounted for over 50% of the clothing market by volume in many sub-Saharan African countries. So the options for your clothing are the store that you took them to, the dump near the store that you took them to, likely an African country, or a dump in said African country. And some part of it will be used for rags and stuffing, so a kind of recycling. Why does some of it get thrown in the garbage right away, you ask? Is it simply because there's too much to deal with? That's totally possible, could be part of it, but apparently people will donate anything. It's like instead of going to the dump and the thrift store, they just go to the thrift store. In researching for this video, I found testimonies on all kinds of nasty stuff. Literally, dirty underwear is a regular occurrence. I don't think people should be buying or selling underwear at thrift stores, like the bottom half, especially for women. I've bought bras at thrift stores, that's no problem. But underwear that's hard to keep hygienic. People will donate soiled things, ripped things, wet things. If you're donating to a thrift store, act as if you're taking it to a consignment shop. If it's ripped or damaged, fix it. If it's dirty, wash it. If it's garbage, deal with your own garbage. And yeah, there is way too much of it. That's basically why I'm talking about this. I'm the person who says buy less, and this is one of the reasons. Salvation Army has a central sorting center for, I guess, the GTA in Oakville, Ontario, which is right beside Toronto. And they sort through 90 tons of donations every week. I don't even know what a good comparison for that would be. What's 90 tons of clothing look like? It's just so much. 90 tons. Turns out it's 3,913 suitcases full of clothing. All right, so we've established there's too much of it. But why is there too much of it? 2 words: fast fashion. I've said this in another video specifically about fast fashion, but fashion seasons have gone from 2 a year, cold weather and warm weather, to 52 a year. The average person in America buys 70 pieces of clothing per year. And they buy those 70 pieces for $1,700 for an average of $24.29 per piece. That's cheap. Fast fashion is cheap, low-quality, disposable clothing that multiplies like a virus. No trend or design is off the table because next week you'll be throwing it out. So who cares if it doesn't fit properly and it's gonna fall apart in the washing machine, right? So, why is this a problem? There's some obvious reasons. Number one, the environment. We're using so many resources to make all this clothes, and then we're just pushing it into a system that's becoming overloaded, and lots of them are ending up in the garbage. From beginning to end, that's terrible. It uses a lot of resources, it creates hazardous waste, and these products are not recyclable or biodegradable. To make things really cheaply, it's often required that you have a cheap labor force and therefore poor working conditions. I don't think I have to tell you why that's bad. And I think overconsumption is mentally unhealthy. I don't know if there's any studies that prove that, but there you have it. The less obvious problems. It's really more like one big, less obvious problem, and it's about what happens to the countries that receive all these cheap used clothes from America, Canada. So as I alluded to in the introduction, this industry has the potential to have had disrupted and decimated some textile and garment industries in some of these African countries where all these clothes are going to. That was a mouthful. Let me explain. In the simplest of terms, basically a lot of cheap product got injected into the economies and undermined the textile and garment industries of those places. So in the late 80s and 90s, some African countries experienced economic liberalization, opening their markets to global competition. It's not known if the used clothing industry of the West caused the disruption or the breakdown of these textile and garment industries in these African nations. However, there is strong evidence that they perpetuate the problem. And frankly, so far, all the information I've read points to our used clothing really undermining these other economies and industries. However, to suddenly pull everything out would not solve the problem. It would not stimulate their own industries to suddenly become vibrant again. It would probably just leave a gaping hole for another country to come in and sell other cheap goods, likely new cheap goods from China. So we're getting rid of our used stuff that we don't want anymore, and we feel okay about it because we're giving it to a thrift store instead of putting it in the landfill. However, that's getting sent onward to other countries where it's causing problems. And some countries have started to charge huge tariffs to counteract this, or have just banned outright the import of used goods from certain countries like the States and Canada. And this has happened fairly recently. They don't want it anymore. It's not helped them, but it also can disrupt the culture. A lot of a country's culture can be woven into their clothing, and that connection that people have to their history can be lost. And there's a lot of value in that. Not only that, but it's forcing someone else's culture on them. Not only do they lose these colors and patterns and styles and connections, they are kind of being forced to adopt ours, our styles, our clothing, our colors, our clothes. And who wants to live in a world without amazing African textiles? Okay, so that's a bunch of problems. What about solutions? Should you stop donating your clothes or boycott secondhand stores? No, that's not the answer. The ancient Greeks said nothing in excess, or everything in moderation. And that's basically the solution at the end of all of my videos. You need to consume less. As a world of 7 billion people who are slowly but insistently destroying our only home planet, it's safe to say that as a species, balance and moderation are not our strong suit. But we gotta try. Ideally, every country and region should be capable of creating and sustaining its own second-hand clothing cycle without being overwhelmed by the sheer volume of product. When there's this much excess clothing, there's a problem. Our used clothing industry in North America is bloated and unhealthy. But there is such thing as a healthy used clothing cycle. So what does that look like? A healthy or virtuous clothing cycle includes clothes that are high quality and well taken care of, using classic styles and longer seasons. Too many seasons or designs means ridiculous trends and disposable styles. But how does this fit into making your own unique style? Some of your own unique style will include classic pieces that you style in a unique way. And the future of used clothing is expected to include a lot of private online sales, meaning you'll be able to find people who appreciate your unique style of clothing. Along with buying less, you can donate to local thrift stores and consignment shops. Not big box stores, but local ones. Fortunately, in Canada, local thrift stores still hold the majority market share. However, that is quickly changing. Make a commitment to long-lasting quality clothing and taking care of it. A lot of stuff that gets sold overseas is what couldn't be sold in the stores here. Having less clothing that's higher quality and well taken care of can create a healthy clothing cycle that doesn't need to rely on other countries. So, what's the best thing you ever found in a thrift store? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and see you later.